and welcome to the Monday evening.
Love ball like I do. After Dark, it's a must listen.
It's where I go to get my hoops fixed.
This is the Over 68 After Dark.
The season of bye games is over. We are now into conference play, and we are going to be kicking off the Field of 68 After Dark here on a Monday night with a great night of Big 12 basketball. It is not quite over yet. We have number 3 Iowa State and Colorado are playing a close one. Iowa State is now up 6 with about 2 minutes left in that game at Colorado. So it looks like that one's going to end up going towards the Cyclones. We'll keep you updated on it as it kind of plays out here. My name is Rob Dauster. I have Mike Latulip with me. I have Jerel McNeal with me, and we're going to talk a lot of Big 12 hoops tonight, guys. We have TCU in Arizona to talk about. Caleb Love went absolutely bonkers, arguably his best performance as a college basketball player. We're going to get to that here in a second. And Houston goes on the road and takes care of Oklahoma State in dominating fashion. Mike Latulip texted us earlier, this is not the best viewing experience, and we will talk about Houston's win at Oklahoma State. But we're going to start with the ranked team that went down tonight. Cincinnati goes on the road to Manhattan, to the Octagon of Doom, and loses 70-67 to Kansas State. A Kansas State team that badly needed this win, Mike. They had come into this having lost 3 in a row. They had come into this in a spot where it felt a little bit like the pressure was really starting to build on this program. They had one of the highest NIL expenditures of anybody in college basketball, and they found a way to get a win tonight. 70-67 over number 16 Cincinnati. Coleman Hawkins, 20 points, 10 boards, 4 steals, 3 assists. And I'll tell you this, Mike, that was the first time I think this year that we saw the Illinois version of Coleman, the best version of Coleman in a Kansas State uniform.
Yeah, it's the beauty of the start of conference play, because everybody's got hope at this point that you can try to make a run at this thing. And for Kansas State, this felt like the first game, we'll call it against a high major opponent, that they played like a unit. And Coleman Hawkins was a big reason for that. He's the one that ties it all together. And for him, like, the more this team meshes, the better Coleman is going to be, because of the imprint that he has on what they do offensively and what they do defensively. So just watching him over the years, and I watched a lot of games of him at Illinois. When you understand how to play and how to play with him, he's going to make you better. Because if you make it a point of emphasis to cut off the ball, he's going to find you. If you put your head down and run and transition when he gets a defensive rebound, he'll hit ahead, he'll find you, he'll get you easy transition looks. If you learn to trust defensively, he can cover up a multitude of sins, because I think he's one of the best help defenders probably in college basketball, just because of his IQ and his feel. So that was a classic Coleman Hawkins game because of, again, his fingerprints being all over it. But for this Kansas State team, I don't think they're the most talented team in the world by any means, but it's amazing what you can overcome when you play your ass off and you play confidently. Cincinnati out-rebounded them. Cincinnati shot it better than them. And it just didn't matter, because from the beginning of the game, they made an emphasis, we're going to disrupt you defensively, and we're going to get into the paint offensively, get to the free throw line, and get easy baskets. So, I mean, it's a heck of a win for Kansas State. It's their first high major win of the year, and it comes at a really good time here to start conference play.
Yeah, and I thought it wasn't just Coleman, right? It was Doug McDaniel as well. Doug McDaniel had 17 points. He did have 6 turnovers, but his ability, Jerel, to make something happen, to put the ball on the floor, to create off the bounce, I think is a real difference maker for this team. And again, he played 5 minutes the other night against, I think, was it Wichita State? He has not quite been what at least I expected him to be. And when I thought of Kansas State heading into the season, Jerel, this is what I thought of. Doug McDaniel getting to the rim, creating shots, making stuff happen the way that he did, and Coleman Hawkins having this level of impact on a basketball game.
Yeah, absolutely, Rob. And you can kind of see it just right from the jump. Obviously, as we already kind of spoke to, this was a make or break spot. It felt like for Kansas State, and hopefully this win is able to take a little bit of the edge and some of the pressure off with these guys. But you can see it right from the tip, though, that Coleman Hawkins and McDaniels were engaged. They came out early. Hawkins hit some early outside shots, which is always a good sign whenever he's able to stretch the floor and get his three-pointer working. And McDaniel was super aggressive as well, too. And just those two kind of led the charge offensively, just getting that crowd involved into the game early on, making some early shots and just being aggressive and playing off of one another. And those other guys did a great job as well, too, chipping in and doing all the little things, making shots when they need to, and also getting paint touches when they needed to as well. But this is the team I felt like that we've been expecting, everybody's kind of been waiting for. So like, hopefully, like, sort of like Mike says, just at this time of year, everybody still has hope. You can still go out there at the end of the day and win your conference and get into the dance. So it's still early in the year, and you're going to have a ton of opportunities with a team like them being in the Big 12. So hopefully, like I said, this alleviates a little bit of the pressure, because regardless of what people think or say, man, it's a ton of pressure. When you spend that type of money on guys and you create a roster like that in 1 year, you have a ton of turnover. It's a lot of pressure on those guys to produce and perform. And, with this day and age with social media, it's so much added stuff with people, they kind of count in their pockets and how much that we giving this guy to do this. And, every time you have a bad game, you're going to kind of hear about it. So long as they're able to keep their head above water, be aggressive. But it's going to take those two guys leading the charge and doing this consistently, man. So they still got hope, a huge resume win for them tonight. And let's see where they can take it from here.
Well, Jerel, on that point, if you are Jerome Tang, how do you get that out of them consistently? How do you make sure that this is the Doug McDaniel you get and this is the Coleman Hawkins you get? We've already seen some of the issues that they've had with bringing the roster together, I guess is maybe the way that you say it. Obviously, Ashore is no longer on that roster. So, like, what can you do to be able to make sure that this is the group that you have and this is the way that they play?
I mean, in my opinion, just on the coaching side of things is, you got to try to do everything you can to make that locker room and those guys as loose as possible. And I don't mean loose in a sloppy way. I just mean loose as in those guys aren't playing tight. Like when you play tight, everybody knows this basketball is a rhythm game. And when you play tight, bad things happen, especially when you're talking about your best players. So if they're feeling the pressure, that's going to kind of trickle down throughout the rest of the team. So I know Coach Tang, for the most part, I'm sure he's had conversations with those guys, and he's just, trying to lighten the mood some and let those guys know them. That he has their back, that they kind of in it together. And just to go out there and be aggressive and do what they do, they whatever money that they demanded, they got that money for a reason. And they thought highly enough to give it to them, and they thought they would make an impact for their team. So, just go out there and play your game. Don't try to be something that you're not. They got the guys that they wanted, and you just got to go out there and do that and be who you are. So I'm sure he's just trying to lighten the mood as much as possible. And like I said, it's always a little bit easy after a big statement win against a ranked team on your home court. So that helps everything. And these are the type of games that can be for a team like this, because they have the talent. We know they have the talent. But this type of game like right here could be just like the turning point for their season, and they can kind of come back and battle throughout the Big 12 and see what they can get done.
Mike?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think Jerel hit a lot of really good points there. Just when you look at like the psyche of a team, when you come into the season and there's certain expectations, when it's pretty publicized, the amount of money that was spent on the team, the expectations that follow that, and then you kind of have this identity crisis to start a season. And there's a number of teams in college basketball that have gone through this where you're like, hey, are we not who we thought we were going to be? And guys start questioning themselves as players. Guys start questioning the team as a unit. And then sometimes it takes a win like this where you can go sit in the film room and say, you know what, this is what it looks like when guys are assertive. This is what it looks like when guys are playing confidently and we're getting into you defensively, and we're disruptive and we're creating turnovers and getting out in transition. Like, that's fun. That's just fun basketball. And the more you see that, the more you put that on film and feel that, the more you want to try to replicate it. And so, they've done some trimming down as the season has gone on. I think we've seen that. And look, for you touched on Doug McDaniel too. Doug McDaniel, I think he really could be one of the more electric guards in college basketball. Like, he really could be. He's got the touch, he's got the speed, the burst to get by you. He's crafty. It's just with him, it's always been, at times it's a lack of focus. At times it's being loose with the ball. We saw that a little bit tonight too. But the reality is, like, that dude needs to play for them because he's one of their only advantage creators. Like that, he can get by you and he can get downhill, get into the paint. Now you got Hassan, you got these other guys able to step out, shoot threes. Coleman, you could call an advantage creator just from his IQ, and you saw him exploiting mismatches tonight. But that's kind of it. So you really need those guys to be playing at a high level every single game. They don't have the luxury of, like, hey man, we're 6 deep with advantage creators. So those guys need to be good. And if they are, maybe you make a run at this thing in the Big 12. And I'm not saying win the Big 12, but just continue to stack wins and see if you can find yourself around that bubble come March.
Yeah, you don't have to win the Big 12. You can get to 12 wins in this league, even with the non-conference that they had. And as long as it's the right wins, you're going to have a chance to be able to make the tournament. That's just the way the Big 12 is this year. I do want to give a shout out to Max Jones. Max Jones had a huge offensive rebound. He had the bucket that put him up by 4 with about a minute left. And then after Coleman, we gave him all the credit. But Coleman, I'm going to hit you on this. You missed a free throw that would have put you up by 4 with, I think, 23 seconds left. Max Jones was the guy that kept it alive and tipped it out. So shout out to him. He came into Kansas State this summer from, I believe he was UC Irvine, right? And it was one of the UCs. I think it was UC Irvine. And was a little bit overweight and wasn't quite the guy that they maybe saw on tape. And he was there for like the early part of their summer session, goes home for 2 weeks. And they're like, I don't know, man, like I don't know if this is going to end up working out. And then he comes back after those 2 weeks at home and like had streamlined his body and looked like a different dude and was more explosive and was quicker. And then they were like, who is this guy? We just got a new player out of the portal right here. And you could see the impact that he had tonight. I want to turn this just to the Cincinnati side really quick, guys. Mike, I'm going to go to you first, and Jerel, I want your opinion on this as well. I thought Daniel Skillings and Dillon Mitchell were both terrific tonight. Dillon Mitchell was the best player on the floor for Cincinnati, and Daniel Skillings was a close second. You go on the road to the Octagon of Doom, a place where Jerome Tang is 10-2 against ranked opponents. That is a nightmare building to play in when you are on the road, and you lose by 3 in a game that you had an opportunity to win. I don't think that this says anything about Cincinnati beyond the fact that Kansas State woke up. That's a tough place to play, and the road is a brutal place in the Big 12. Mike, you go first.
Yeah, I don't think it's any reason to panic if you're Cincinnati. You touched on it with Skillings. I thought Skillings was a guy tonight. He knocks down 4 threes, and it felt like all 4 of them were like Kansas State makes a run, Skillings 3. It was he stopped the bleeding multiple times. I think they took the lead on it on at least one occasion. And then with Dillon Mitchell too, he has 15 tonight, knocks down 2 threes. He's shooting 27% on the season, and so if that can become, you don't want him to start taking 8 a game, but if he can at least make you honor him a little bit from the outside, because Coleman Hawkins to start the game was like doing what Coleman Hawkins does best, and it's him being a rover and him being like, I don't have to respect your 3-point shot, so now I can just be disruptive in gaps and cut off Jizzle James and do all the things that makes Coleman Hawkins good. He started to kind of move a little bit further out to Dillon Mitchell once he knocked down those 2 threes. And all that's going to do, if he can do that with a little bit more regularity, is just open things up for Lukosius, open things up for James, like I mentioned. And that's gonna make it, I think, make things flow a little bit more offensively. Because I didn't think that they were bad defensively tonight. I thought they really got into Doug McDaniel in the gaps towards later in the game, and he coughed it up a few times. So again, no reason to panic there. It's Kansas State. I don't want to say it was like a kitchen sink game for the first conference game, but they knew they needed this one to get them on the right footing. So, if I'm Cincinnati, I'm not discouraged at all.
Mm-hmm. Jerel?
Yeah, I thought Cincinnati played them really tough, and that's really considering their leading scorer Lukosius only got 6 shot attempts up tonight. So I thought Kansas State did a great job of taking away his space, not giving him any early open looks as well. But also Cincinnati was a little bit too careless with the ball. I think they finished with like 15 turnovers. And they also only shot 7 free throws for the entire game. So Kansas State did a great job of playing without fouling. Like Mike kind of spoke to, I think they had a lot of issues just with Coleman Hawkins roaming and just forcing those guys when they did beat their initial defender to have to try to score over him at the rim consistently, which isn't an easy task to do with his length and athleticism and the way he's able to move. So, they did a really good job, but Cincinnati still was able to kind of crack the code a little bit. They started to open things up. Guys started hitting shots as y'all spoke to early. Skillins really shot the ball well from deep. Jizzle James played okay. He was able to get to the paint, get to his stuff as well too. So I don't think they got anything to worry about. It's not easy winning on the road in this league, but they'll be able to bounce back and they'll have their fair share of cracks. They're trying to get some quality road kills as well in the Big 12.
All right, let's move this to another game that happened in the Big 12, and it still is a little strange for me to say that this is a game that happened in the Big 12, but TCU went out to the McNeal Center to take on Arizona, and Arizona got what I think was maybe the best game that we've ever seen out of Caleb Love in his 38-year career in college basketball. 33 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, 11 for, let me check the box one more time, 17 from the floor, 5 for 11 from 3, made all 6 of his free throws, a couple of steals, and 33 points. He was terrific. He took the right shots. He made the open looks. He was able to draw some fouls. I thought that he was incredible tonight. And Arizona was only able to win by 9 points. They did get a little bit of news, Mike, that Mateus Krivas is going to be out for the season. So Henry Visar is going to be the guy at the 5 with Toby Awaka for the foreseeable future moving forward for the Arizona Wildcats. They're another team that got off to a bad start. They had another star that has been much maligned in college basketball circles this season. Is Arizona back, Mike? Are they officially back?
They could be. I mean, I think ultimately, yeah. I mean, that's kind of a cop-out answer, but I think ultimately this is what happens. I mean, maybe
they are. I don't know. Someone else can take that with.
I'll say, yeah. You know what? I will say they're back. Because look, when you get the performance like this, like college basketball, it's a guards game. It just is, and when you get a performance like this from that backcourt, and it's not only just about points, right, and putting the ball in the basket. Like to have 3 guys that are your primary ball handlers get 6 or more assists, and that's a TCU team that does turn you over a pretty high rate, and you're able to come in tonight and have 28 assists and 7 turnovers. Like that is really, really impressive. And Krivas, that's a big loss for them. But you talk about Visar stepping up tonight, and they're going to need that with Awaka moving forward. To kind of hold the fort down as the guards do what the guards do. But you touched on Caleb Love, man. Like that dude had his fingerprints all over this game. And what I love to see with Caleb is, the shot selection will always be one of those things where you're like he's the ultimate heat check guy. I think we all know that at this point. But I'm probably most impressed with the 7 assists, 0 turnovers tonight for him. And that's something that, as much as, we look at a guy that's now at his 5th year in college, that's something he has steadily improved on throughout each season he's played college basketball. And like that turnover number has gone down, and 0 tonight, under 2, I think he's at 1.8, 1.7 for the season. Like that's what they need from him, because that's not squandering possessions. And this is a really good rebounding team, really good offensive rebounding team. And so the more chances that this Arizona team can get back to get the ball back into the hands of those guards, to get the ball back into the hands of a guy like Caleb Love, who in my opinion, like he's as combustible offensively as anybody in college basketball. Anybody. I don't care who it is. I mean, the quick trigger, the range, the ability to get to the free throw line. I mean, he's got the full package. And I know we've seen it for years. It's not breaking news, but man, it was good to see it tonight. It was good to see how efficient it was tonight. That's huge for Arizona.
Yeah, Jerel?
I mean, same, and Mike kind of hit it all on the head. It's just they look like a team who enjoyed playing with each other tonight. 28 assists as a team tonight, and like he said, what was it, 6 or 7 turnovers? That's phenomenal. And the ball was hopping around. It made it really hard on TCU to stop those guys. And like we said, this was this was a masterpiece performance from Caleb Love, man. And that's just for me. And Mike just spoke to it. Like, man, that's the thing that kind of drives me crazy about somebody like him, man, because I really do like his game. He could do a little bit of everything. Like we said, he's combustible, man. He can get hot at any moment and kind of take over a game offensively. He's a 3-level scorer. He has the ability to play make as well too, and get in the mix and get some rebounds, man. But it's just the inconsistencies, man. And I still don't understand it, especially with guys that have been around for so long and they kind of know the ropes, man. I was just expecting him, even if it wasn't the entire team and the year for Arizona, just expecting him to kind of be the guy to steady the ship at some point and at least like kind of lead the way with his consistency and his production, man. And it's been all over the place again this year, so I'm not quite ready to say that they're back. But tonight was definitely a step in the right direction, so it was a great game, man, and those guys look good tonight.
Yeah, I'll say this. If they're going to move the ball the way they move the ball tonight, then I think that Arizona is back, right? They're never going to be this great, like, shut you down defensive team. They just don't have the athletes that they did last year. Like, losing Pella Larson and losing who was the transfer from San Diego State? I'm blanking on. Yeah. Losing those two, the Pella's in the NBA, like they're both playing in the NBA right now, right? Losing those two guys, I think takes away what you can be and what you're seeing ceiling is defensively, right? And I don't think you're ever going to be great on that end of the floor with the pieces that you have right now. Whereas you can be a team that goes out and gets 90 on any given night. You can be a team that's going to shoot 57% from the floor. Like, we know what Tommy Lloyd can be as an offensive coach. Like, he learned from Mark Few. It's not like Mark Few needed the 27 NBA players to be able to have the number one offense in college basketball. They just run that flow. They get into those ball screens. They get those pin downs. They know how to get the touches to the right guys, and they know how to be able to run their offense. And if you can be that, if the ball can ping around the way that it pinged around today for Arizona, I think you got a chance to be something pretty good. I do just want to note, I don't know if you guys are tracking it, but Gonzaga is now up by, well, they just pushed it to 6, but the Pepperdine had come back from a double-digit deficit to cut a lead to 3. So we got another upset watch, fellas. We got to keep an eye on that one. A couple more Big 12 games I do want to get to. Iowa State goes on the road to Colorado. They were up by 12 early in the second half, Jerel. Colorado State went on a 22-5 run. They were up by 5 at one point in the second half. Iowa State was able to pull out the win. To me, that looked like a team that was playing at elevation in their first game after being on break for however many days to go home for Christmas. And I think that it's, that's a sneaky difficult first game back from Christmas break.
Set up, man.
One day before New Year's Eve. Yeah, that's a setup to take an L. So what do you make of this Iowa State team and this Iowa State program overall?
Oh, man, just another impressive performance. And like you said, it's a back and forth game. Colorado was just hanging around. Iowa State got out to an early lead, and then you kind of felt that momentum shift. It was like a 6 or 7 point lead. Colorado started cutting into it. They started making a couple threes, and they eventually ended up going up and even kind of stretched the lead out some. But man, I never felt worried because Iowa State didn't seem rattled in the least way, and they got the guys, and they kind of got the guard play and the experience, and you know why they didn't get rattled, and they just they stayed the course. They continued to play hard. They stuck to their principles. They continued to defend and make it tough on those guys, and give Colorado credit because they had some guys really getting up some big performances. With Julian Hammond, he played spectacular tonight, but it just wasn't enough, man. And those guards, man, they just keep coming at you, man. Keyshawn Gilbert finished with 14. Jefferson was a beast again. I think he had something crazy like 8 steals or something tonight. And also Curtis Jones was great as well too, man. So they just kept coming at them. They was able to cut into that lead, and once they got it back in the end in that last 5 minutes, you kind of felt like that was the death sentence right there. They weren't going to get that lead back, man. But just another impressive performance. Obviously, a game that they were kind of expected to win. But every time I get the opportunity to watch Iowa State, man, I like them a little bit better and better, man. I think this really might be or got the potential to be a special year for them.
Mike?
Yeah, welcome back to the Big 12, Colorado. you got Iowa State. You got Iowa State coming into your house, and look, Jerel said it. Credit to Colorado for hanging around, but Iowa State does what Iowa State does, and it's there's so much talk about who they are defensively, how much they turn you over, what they do on the glass, but man, I think they're almost like underrated offensively with just the amount of weapons that they have. When you have a guy that you can bring off the bench like Jones, who's probably the best sixth man in the country, and can go and give you 20, give you 25 on any night. You got Lipsy, who's just the point of attack defensively, playing center field, getting steals and gaps, getting out in transition. Gilbert's always putting pressure on the rim, always getting to the free throw line. That allows you to set up that that defense. It's one of the best in the country. But all these other pieces too. Jerel touched on Jefferson. 8 steals tonight. How about Chatfield coming off the bench and grabbing 7 offensive rebounds? I thought he I don't want to say he like swung that game, but there were, when Colorado really had it rolling, there were probably 8 possessions in a 5 possession span for Iowa State offensively where he generated extra opportunities for them, which is huge. And like, if you want to look at teams that play in Final Fours, look at teams that have hopes of winning a national championship, it's not just about the Gilberts, the Joneses, the Lipsies. It's about all those other guys too. And honestly, I think that's where they're better this year. And I didn't even mention Momcilovic either. That's where they're better this year. I think they're deeper than they were last year. And not necessarily deeper with guys that can go get you 12, 15. They're deeper with guys that can just have an all-around type of game and help you in certain areas, right? Like that's and Heisey too comes off the bench. He's a guy that against Marquette was guarding Cam Jones in the second half. So it's all the different pieces that they have that I think makes them one of the best teams in the country. And it's always good to prove it when you can go and get a conference win on the road like they did tonight.
So I think when I think of Iowa State being deeper, and I believe a lot of the same stuff you believe, both of you guys, but I think the biggest thing is that they don't have to win with their defense. Like, they're not built to win games 68-66 this year and need to turn you over 28 times to be able to do it. Like, Keyshawn Gilbert is a bucket getter. Tamin Lipsy is a guy that has really improved on the offensive end of the floor. And tonight, like, you got Curtis Jones coming off the bench and giving you 20. And Curtis Jones is what? Their third best offensive weapon, fourth best offensive weapon on the perimeter. Not even talking about Joshua Jefferson. So I think that they are much deeper in terms of the weaponry that they have. And they can still win games by making it ugly. And they can still win games by mucking it up. But they don't have to do that anymore. And this is where we pivot into Houston, because my biggest concern with Houston, and we didn't necessarily see it tonight because Oklahoma State is not the greatest viewing experience, shall we say? Is that might be a Field of 68 motto right now? But I'm a little bit worried about Houston because I think they want to play close games, and I don't think they have. Jerel, my biggest issue with them losing Jamal Shed is not what it's going to impact them defensively. They don't have a guy that makes stuff easier for people on the offensive end of the floor. And I feel like that's not as much of an issue with Iowa State, because I think TJ saw, like, we can win games this way, but we're not going to win a national title that way. And that's kind of where I'm at with Houston at this point, even though they went on the road and they beat Oklahoma State tonight.
Absolutely. And I think that's the biggest thing is Shed. They got a guy who left for the NBA, and just the way that they play is not like they have a true guy where they could just roll the ball down to the post, and and there's somebody that's going to command help down there. They have a lot of guys that are usually undersized, they're scrappy, they're athletic, they can guard, they can rebound, but You need guys on the perimeter that can get paint touches and that can beat their man off of the bounce and create for others. Like I think that was one of the things that made them more dynamic last year. Obviously, we talking a different story if he doesn't go down as well too at the end. But just him being able to pretty much beat anybody in the country off of the bounce and get downhill and just get a piece of the paint to a point where somebody else has to come in and help, and he can make the right play and kick it out, and the ball can start moving from that point and find an open guy for a good look or a long closeout so somebody else could drive it again. I think they are kind of missing that this year, and that's going to make things a little bit difficult. And the thing that worries me about Houston, and I'll say this is just you kind of spoke to it almost a little bit with that last segment with Iowa State. The teams that do really well in March and usually end up making a deep run are the ones that can win in multiple ways. That time of year, that's a good thing. If you can win ugly, if you can win in the 50s, or if you got enough firepower to go out and score 90 if you need to outscore somebody because both teams are real high. You need to be able to win multiple ways. And right now, I'm not sure if Houston can necessarily do that. But Lord, they're so dynamic defensively and good defensively. I'm not going to say that they can't either. So, it's just a situation like tonight, Oklahoma State, obviously, like we said, they struggling is a nice way to put it. But, they 25% from the field for the game, like 21 from
That's
the
not
three.
good.
Like,
That's not good.
That's hard to do, Rob. It's hard to do with able-bodied people out there moving around who are on scholarship. That's hard to do. I don't give a damn who you playing. To hold somebody to 21% field goal percentage from the three and 26 or 25 or whatever it was from the field, it's hard to do, man. So, Houston, they'll have an issue if they end up having to play from behind. I'll say that. Somebody comes out, they're red hot, they start making a ton of threes, and they get down 15 to 20 points. Are they going to be able to have the firepower and the guard play of guys who are going to be able to consistently draw the paint, get fouls, get other guys open looks to be able to come back if they get down in one of those close games around March Madness?
Mike, you agree?
Yeah, I think you look at how the game's played today, and I'm a firm believer. I would rather be the team that has to figure out how to get stops and be the team that has to figure out how to get buckets. Like that's in this day and age, like that is, I just don't think you want to be that team because there's too many shooting variants, 3-point variants where like if you go into a game and you hit a team that I don't care how good your defense is and you just get a team that gets hot on you, it's over. And so with Houston right now, Jerel, you touched on it a little bit and Rob, you did too. Like I don't think they generate easy enough looks offensively. And part of that, like the first thing that I look at sometimes for that, especially for guards, LJ Cryer and Emmanuel Sharp both are shooting under 40% from two. Like that means you're not getting to that last layer of the defense and getting shots on rim. It's settling for pull-ups. It's not getting all the way downhill, or it's not being able to finish at a high level once you do get downhill. So those are issues because I do think that the offense can become a chore sometimes for Houston, and it's like the anti-Arizona where like Arizona's probably gonna have to figure out how to get stops at some point, but we do know that they can put the ball in the basket. But I think if you're Kelvin Sampson and you're coming back from Stillwater, maybe you throw the game on the flight back, and you're getting ready for film tomorrow with your team. 5 offensive rebounds tonight. I would have never thought I'd see the day that a Houston team would have 5 offensive rebounds. It's by far their lowest of the season. And I think that's going to be at the top of the list for Kelvin, where it's like, hey, we played a team and we won tonight because frankly we're just better than that team. They didn't have to play their A, B, probably or C game tonight to win, but that's not going to fly when you get into the meat of the Big 12 schedule. So things that definitely have to be worked on. They've had a few opportunities this year, I think, to get big time resume building wins. But when you look at it, like what is their best win this year? Like I'm not saying they got like work to do to get into the tournament. That's not what I'm saying at all. This is going to be a team that's likely going to be like a top, probably 3-4 seed. But But yeah, I mean, there's some alarming indicators at this point. But again, just like you look at Iowa State, look at some of these other teams, you go and get a win on the road in conference play, you'll take it and get the hell out of there.
Yeah. And just to qualify this for the Houston fans that are getting upset about it, this is what happens when you reach the level of being a consistent top 10 team. We no longer talk about this is why you are so great. We talk about why this is why you are like a top 10 team and not Auburn and not the number 1 team in America and not the number 2 team in America. I love everything about Houston. I love everything about Kelvin Sampson and the culture that he's developed. But you have reached the point where you have gotten to the place where we have to critique the 13-point road wins in Big 12 play, which is it's a compliment to where you guys are as a program. All right, you guys each have 15 seconds to answer this. Mike, who is the favorite to win the Big 12 today?
Iowa State. I'm not even going to get the full 15 seconds. We just talked about it. Iowa State.
Jerel?
I agree. I think you got to say Iowa State right now.
Yeah, Cyclones, baby. Listen, when we get back, we need to talk about the head coach that is being sued for $1.5 million in NIL compensation. That's coming up next. If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for the season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Go download the BetMGM app and use the code FIELD today. Now that college basketball season is back in full swing, I need to remind you guys about our partners over at Autograph, where the real college hoops fans reside. The Autograph app curates all of the best content for every sports fan and every sports fan's favorite team. Podcasts, blogs, analysis. It's all there without the nonsense from the talking heads that don't actually watch the games. And there's a bonus. Consuming content on the Autograph app earns you coins that can be redeemed for rewards for things like no-fee tickets or signed jerseys from your favorite players. There are a couple new features in the app that I need to let you guys know about as well. Autograph Replay gives you a quick-hitting summary of the previous day's news so you can keep track of all the important things going on with your favorite teams. And Autograph Rooms allows you to chat in real time with the true voices of fandom within your team's community. So go to the link in the description or scan that QR code on your screen and download the Autograph app. Oh, welcome back to the Field of 68 After Dark. It is Monday night, and we just spent 36 minutes talking about the top of the Big 12, including Kansas State's wins over Cincinnati, Arizona's win over TCU, Caleb Love, Coleman Hawkins, Houston, Iowa State. It was a fun start to the show. My name is Rob Dauster. I have Mike LaTulip with me. I have Jerel McNeal with me. And we got to get into the less fun portion of the programming now. Leonard Hamilton was accused in a lawsuit that was filed in Florida today of not paying or promising $1.5 million, $250,000 each to 6 former student athletes at Florida State this past season and not living up to what he had promised that he would be able to pay these athletes. We're going to get into the legal specifics in just a little bit. We have Mitch Gilfillan coming on, who is an attorney in Peoria, Illinois, and a little bit of an expert in the NIL space to kind of help us parse through some of the legalese here. But I will say this. There is a statement that has been put out by Florida State from Leonard Hamilton. It reads, quote, "Though our inquiry is not yet complete at this point, we know of no unfulfilled commitments by FSU in terms of scholarships or other appropriate benefits or the Rising Spear Collective relative to NIL payments owed to the athletes." So Florida State is essentially denying what was alleged in that lawsuit. It was the news was broken by Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports. We will link that story in the description on the podcast feed and on the YouTube channel for those that are curious and reading a little bit more about it. But Mike, let me start you off with this, man. Like, what does this mean for where we stand right now in terms of the NIL world? What does this mean in terms of how the system of collectives paying these players and what is effectively pay for play and not actually NIL money getting paid. What does this mean for where we are right now in college athletics and specifically college basketball?
I mean, everything that went down with Florida State is the exact reason why they're moving to institutional NIL. It's the exact reason why they want schools to own that relationship financially, academically, athletically. And honestly, it's the exact reason why once July 1st hits, hopefully, right, all these deals will go through an appeal process. All these deals will have to be approved. And I think that only helps the players, because this, I'll be honest, like this gray area bullshit that's gone on for 3 years now, it's allowed some coaches and collectives, not all, but some coaches and collectives to just be careless and not be held accountable for that carelessness. So anyone that's done business at, and I don't care what the business is, right? Big, small, like everybody knows that like once you start getting 3, 4, 5 parties involved with business, the efficiency drops off the table. Right, it drastically decreases. So it sucks that those promises weren't fulfilled. It sucks that those kids were kind of left high and dry. But the change that was needed is finally coming. So and really, like if the NCAA didn't hold on to the facade of amateurism for as long as they did, this probably would have happened sooner. And scenarios like this probably could have been avoided.
Yeah, it is. It does give you a little bit of a glimpse into the way that the NIL world currently works, right? And I'll let Jerel speak to this in a second because he knows a little bit more. He's a little bit more in that world than a lot of us are. But you kind of make these promises, right? Whether you're the collective, sometimes it's the coach, even though it's not supposed to be the coach. You make these promises on a certain dollar figure for these players to come and play for your program. And that money is not, for the most part, it's not always there in those collectives yet. What they have to go out and do is raise that money, whether it's from donors, whether it's from the big pocketed boosters that are saying, here, I'm going to drop this bag and put it into the collective and allow you to use it however you see fit, right? Whether it's through different ways to generate revenue that they create themselves. Just full transparency, right? I worked with Louisville down in the Bahamas on their collectives, putting together a media network to be able to sell ads on that to drive revenue into the collective itself. So instead of having it be something where it constantly needs to be replenished by donors, you can kind of create a self-sustaining business model there, which I think is really smart, right? There's a lot of collectives that are doing this the right way. Some of them are not. Some of them are just saying, we're going to give you all this money and then like we'll figure out how to be able to make it happen. And if it doesn't happen and there's no money there, then poof, the collective is gone. So even if you do have a contract in that situation, like what are you going to sue? An entity that doesn't exist, an entity that has gone bankrupt, an entity that says, hey, look, sorry, we got no more money. What do you want us to do? So it is not the greatest way that the system is basically designed to fail, more or less, the way that it's set up right now. So we need some guardrails there. Jerel, I want to ask you this, and then we'll hear from Mitch Gilfillan here in a second. You for people that don't know, you coach an EYBL program in Chicago called Main Street. So you are involved partly in some of the recruitment of some of the players on your program. If you were advising a player that I don't want to say specifically Florida State, I want to put you in that spot, but a coach that had like accusations like this publicly or just something behind closed doors, how does that impact the way that you let this guy let one of your players get recruited by that coach, or the way that you kind of advise him when it comes to what that recruitment should look like?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has an impact, and sort of like both of you guys just spoke to a second ago, it's become the wild, wild west, man. And just on my front, dealing with so many of these young guys and kind of almost passing the torch and handing these guys off, because the year that they play for me is their last year, essentially, most times playing AAU. At the 17U level. So, just the first thing is just educating them. and it's not just the athletes, but the parents as well too. We do a ton of seminars throughout the course of our year and our season, just to try to get on more just situational awareness about NIL, the space, and all the different things, and explain to them about stuff, what a collective is, and how all of that type of stuff works as well too. But I definitely think when you have missteps like this, it affects recruiting, because then you kind of almost get, just like that tag or that flag with your program, where it's like, well, okay, they promising a lot of money, but they not paying anybody. And then it goes on, like you just spoke to, Rob, as well too. It's just like, if you don't have paperwork, it makes absolutely no sense then to me, in my mind. And one of the biggest things I've been doing the last couple of years, just being an advocate for it. I'm just being completely honest about it. Just, I tell every single one of my guys, especially the ones that are higher caliber players that are going to be dealing with a substantial amount of money from the time that they walk into college, that you do need NIL representation. You do need somebody at the table that's able to negotiate and talk. You do need somebody to review those contracts. Just so you make sure everything is on the up and up, or as best that you can, just to protect yourself. Because then once you get in those situations and guys aren't getting what they're being promised, it turns into bad situations, man. And I'm being honest with it. We've dealt with it on more than one occasion, from different universities and different situations. And a lot of the time, I feel like, if I'm being completely honest, a big chunk of it has to do, I feel like, sometimes with performance as well too, not just individually but with the team, man. So when you're making promises for however many $100,000 or $1 million, and you come out and the team sucks, and y'all realize that the season is going to be a complete disaster, I'm sure a lot of these guys are kind of tucking their tails and running and saying, well, what the hell am I spending my hard-earned money for? But, at the same time, that's not business. That's not right. So I think the biggest thing is that we try to educate our kids. I value relationships. I take pride in dealing with a lot of coaches and building those relationships with those coaches that I know and I actually trust, because I've more times than not, I've come across them and had relationships prior to them even wanting to recruit one of our kids. So, but I mean, it's everything, man. You just want to deal with trustworthy people. You want your kids to go to a good spot. You don't want a guy getting hung out and he's owed $200,000. Now he's going insane and he's not even thinking about basketball in school. The real reason, the things that should be most important, you would think is, they kind of get put to the back burner when you kind of feel like you're getting screwed over. So, man, you just try to protect your guys, try to put them in good situations. But for PSA for all players, man, get that representation, have somebody look over those contracts. And I even take it a step further, just a rule of thumb that I always had during my playing career is like, man, if it's pertaining to your career, what you do, read the shit too. Read it. I don't care. I've read every single contract I've ever signed in my life, and it's just a rule of thumb for me, because you'll be surprised to see what you find in those situations, man. And it's worth it. Your career, your livelihood, however you make your money, what you're doing, whether it's a student athlete or something else, just read it, man. You putting your time and effort into it, you're going to sign it, man. Just don't sign away your life on something that you haven't read and you fully understand yourself, not just taking somebody else's word for it too.
Yep. All right, let's get to that interview with Mitch Gilfillan, a former Division I college basketball coach and Division I player who is now an attorney that understands the NIL space. Let's get into that right now. Let me welcome on to the Field of 68 After Dark, our legal correspondent, Mitch Gilfillan from the Quinn Johnston Law Firm in Peoria, Illinois. We're talking a little bit about Leonard Hamilton and what the legal issue that he is dealing with right now. And the basics for the people that don't know, he's being sued by 6 former players for $250,000 each, a total of $1.5 million in what they were promised to be NIL payments that came from the coach that was supposed to come from one of his, quoted in the Yahoo Sports story today from Ross Dellinger, his business partners. Unclear exactly what those business partners are or who they are. But Mitch, I wanted to pick your brain on this a little bit because you are the legal expert. I am not, according to every single person on social media who made that quite clear. So what is the legal recourse here for players that were promised something that maybe didn't get a contract, that maybe didn't get something in writing? And how can you go about actually getting this money if you are a player that is in this situation?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to note first that this is only a complaint. Obviously, these are allegations, and Coach Hamilton has not had his say yet. And I can imagine he's going to fight back tremendously with his own answer and with his own potential motion to dismiss based on several strategic grounds that any lawyer that he hires is going to look into. So I think this is a long way to go. Certainly, it's shocking when you read an article like this and see a lawsuit like this being filed. But it's premature to state how far this will go or what ramifications it will have across the board in college sports. I will say this, though. It certainly is relevant to NIL and where the payments are going today. There's no dispute that these are pay-for-play type arrangements, pay-for-play type contracts, and this one appears to be no different. Again, these are allegations, and I'll be curious where this goes from here. Obviously, the case is going to undergo discovery. There's going to be sworn deposition testimony. There's going to be a lot of things unfold that we don't know yet to see how this ultimately plays out.
If you are advising a player, is this the way that you go about getting this money? Because one of the things you're going to run into with some of these collectives and some of the NIL stuff is that a lot of the promises for payments are made before that actual money is in-house. And so what they'll do is they'll try to raise that money throughout the year, find ways to generate revenue throughout the year. And if it doesn't come in, sometimes these collectives just kind of fold and disappear. So how do you, if you are an agent representing these players, or if you are a player trying to protect yourself, how would you do that?
Well, I think the most important thing is to have a contract in writing. And that sounds so elementary and so basic and clear, but a lot of times these are not. Obviously, we all saw the UNLV quarterback situation unfold, and now what's going on with the Florida State 6 basketball players is advising a player or a coach or anybody entering into a business contract. It's only prudent and only wise that you have a written agreement solidifying the terms, the conditions, and ultimately what the payment's going to be. Anybody, any of us can promise to pay anybody anything, but to have a formal contract, there has to be an offer, there has to be acceptance, there has to be consideration, a true meeting of the minds, if you will. And based right now off of text messages, potential hearsay, potential he said, sometimes those are difficult to prove. So I think first and foremost, having a contract in writing that actually stipulates what exactly you're entering into is the first piece of guidance I would give. Second, you got to know who you're dealing with. Who are the players that are around? Do you have representation yourself? Does the other party have representation? Understanding exactly who the key players are in this negotiation will be critical to see if the contract ultimately holds up and if it's going to be true and accurate to what you believe the term should be.
So what's the best case scenario here for the players? Are they going to be able to get that money back? Is this something where you're just fighting for a percentage of it? Is it something where this is them just kind of saying, look, we're going to make Leonard Hamilton didn't pay us, so we're going to try to make him look bad publicly and make sure that he doesn't get that next round of guys that get burned? What's the most likely outcome here in your mind? Maybe not specific. I don't want you to get too much into specifics just on this case, but like in this general situation.
Yeah, great question. I think plaintiffs in general, sometimes when you file a case, you may not get it all, but you certainly don't want to get zero. And the point that these players are approaching this with is that while they feel like they want to get $250,000, or any player in this situation, would they be happy to get $100,000 as opposed to nothing? Well, absolutely. And so I think they're going to march, to the tune of their own attorney's drum as to where this is going to go and what likelihood of success that they have. Because if you litigate a case too far or take it to a jury and you don't win, you end up with nothing but heartache. And obviously that's not what they want. They want to feel some sort of vindication here. That's why they filed the lawsuit. And I will say this, the attorney that filed the lawsuit, it appears, based on representations he has publicly made, that they have tried to settle this case before ever going to court. However, that was met with basically no response or very little communication, and therefore he felt he was forced to file this lawsuit. That oftentimes happens. You try to make a demand. You say, this is what we think we're owed. If we don't have an answer within 30 days, we're prepared to file suit. And obviously in this case that they did. What I think is very, very damning, though, is that the public already now knows all this. And in the eyes of the public, the court of public opinion, sometimes you're guilty before you even had your day in court. And that's a sad reality of our justice system, that people can file lawsuits and have their word out before the other side even has a chance to blink. And now all of a sudden he's on the defensive side trying to see what he's going to do to respond to this to make him, self look better or clear his name. But he's got a long way to go. This could last 2 to 3 years. And, based on that, the public backlash of recruiting, of people using that against him, I think this has got a long way to go. And I don't think it's going to, right now, the way it looks, do well for them recruiting, do well for their public image, all of those type of things.
Yeah, the tough spot to be in with a situation like this is that once people see the headline, they automatically assume that the allegation is accurate when all it is still just an allegation. We learned that the hard way with a couple of legal situations that we saw last season. Mitch, appreciate the time, man. Thank you for being here on the Field of 68. Now that the college basketball season is in full swing, you need to make sure that you have access to the best betting tool on the market, the Rhythm app. Spelled RITHMM, is a data-backed app that uses AI and analytics to identify inefficiencies in betting lines and the player prop market that will allow you, the user, to profit. You can create customized, analytics-driven betting models tailored to your personal preferences as a bettor. Users have access to up-to-the-second against the spread data. And if you're like me and you understand pictures better than numbers on a screen, Rhythm's internal trend analysis provides you with the kind of graphs that will allow you to evaluate past results and project future performance in a visual way. Every Division I college basketball team is included in the Rhythm's metrics. Free subscribers to the Field of 68 Daily will get 25% off for a Rhythm subscription. Use the QR code on the screen to sign up or download at the link in the description. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Field of 68 After Dark. Rob Dauster here. I got Mike LaTulip with me. I got Jerel McNeal with me, and we are going to dive into Overreaction Monday. The Monday overreactions are one of my favorite things to do here on the Field of 68. We asked you to hit us on Twitter /X/ whatever Elon's new platform is with your overreactions for us to react to. So Dagan Hughes, our producer, if you could pull us up with our first overreaction that we are going to have to discuss. It is from @MattGurney901. Whose name is #God Got Us. Memphis has a legit shot at a Final Four run. Mike, I'm going to you first on this one. What do you think?
I don't think that's an overreaction. And look, there are some indicators that, are somewhat negative when you look at the turnover rate for them. They still turn over at a decently high rate. They get beat up at times on the defensive glass. But that trio of guards, man, you could put them, you could stack them up against anybody in the country. I mean, truly. I mean, not only the fact they can score on all three levels. All three of them are shooting over 40% from three. I love the rotation that they've found and the way they've blended Cisse and Danja together. That's a really, really core group of bigs right there. But yeah, look at their resume, right? I mean, they've beaten Michigan State, they've beaten UConn, Clemson, Ole Miss, and the reason why I don't think this is an overreaction is because I think this is the year where Penny gets off that 8-9 line, and I think they're going to be more like, can they, if they run the table in the American, or at least do extremely well like we expect them to, can they get to that like 4 to 6 range? And if they do, they're going to set themselves up nicely with that backcourt to make a run at this thing.
Jerel?
I think it's not an overreaction. The thing with Memphis is, I could have said it could have been they're going to get bumped in the first round of the NCAA tournament, and I would have been like, that's not an overreaction either. Just the highs and the lows. Memphis is all over the place with me. They obviously have shown the capacity to beat really high level teams, so I feel like they can beat anybody. But if you watch them long enough, you also feel like they had those moments and those days where they can almost lose to anybody too. But just from a talent standpoint, like y'all said, man, their backcourt, those guards are dynamic, man. Those dudes are tough. They all can defend. They all can shoot it. They all can make plays off of the bounce. They're going to be a tough out. I feel like. I think everything Mike said was spot on. It's going to come down to seeding with them. But first and foremost, they just going to have to go to their conference play and roll, man. That's going to go a long way for them because they got enough quality victories and big wins to get a really high seed now. As long as they handle business. Like, don't get me wrong, it's going to probably be some stumbles along the way, but it can't be a lot and a lot of bad ones, kind of like they did last year. It got really ugly there for a while. But if they're able to handle business and win most of the ones that they're supposed to win, they'll be fine. They'll be a 4 seed, a 5 seed, somewhere in that area, maybe even higher if they really roll through their conference play, which shouldn't be a problem with them just based off of the talent that they have. So it's not an overreaction, but I'm still just, if things are up in the air with Memphis, man, they all over the place with me.
Yeah, look, if they win 16 games in league play, then I'm in on them, right? They're going to lose a couple. They'll probably at Florida Atlantic, at Wichita State's tough, at UAB's tough, right? They'll lose a couple in league play. But if they get 15, 16 wins in the AAC, then I'm in, yes. They not only can they make a Final Four, I think there's a real – this is not like saying, they can get lucky and make a run, right? I think there's a real chance that they can make a deep run of the tournament. But if they win 11 games in the league, I'm not buying it. The big thing with Memphis, I said this the other day, if they're reading their press clippings, if they're checking their social media, if they're looking at their mentions, right, anytime they do something good, they immediately they lose it, right? Because they feel themselves a little bit. So I don't think it's an overreaction, but Jerel, I like your take. I don't think losing in the first round would have been an overreaction either. Number 2 on the Monday overreactions list. Indiana from the field of 68 freak. Oh, look, it's Goodman's Burner, the Buzz King. Indiana will fail to qualify for the Big Ten tournament. I got to go to our Big Ten guy first on this one, Mike. Break it down, man. Reaction, overreaction, fair, not fair. What do you got?
I'm going to say it's just a slight overreaction. And the reason I say slight is, for those of you who don't know, to get into the Big Ten tournament, you need to be a top 15 team in the conference of an 18-team conference. So
that's the
reason why I say slight.
Make it 16, man. That's insane. By the way, that's the craziest thing
I think it's just
ever done.
I don't know. I mean, it just they didn't want only Minnesota and Washington to be the sole two. There's at least a little bit more intrigue. There's at least a little bit more intrigue with having that 15 or 16th team in there, because I truly believe you go from 5 to 16 in the Big Ten. It's interesting, man. I think there's not going to be too many games separating those teams, and we're going to get to late February and March, and anytime you can have meaningful games for a 14 seed in the Big Ten, potentially having to play for their lives to get into the Big Ten tournament, I'm all for that. But the thing with Indiana right now is I would have liked to see them be a little bit further development, with their progress to this point. I mean, this is a team that was picked by some people to win the league, and now we're talking about them being on the bubble. Are they going to make the Big Ten tournament? That's a pretty far fall. So I do think it's an overreaction, but I would have liked to see a little bit more progress at this point. I think a lot of it draws back to the non-conference schedule, because when you schedule like this, you put yourself behind the 8 ball because you don't know exactly what and who you have right now, because you haven't tested yourself enough. And now you're going to have to learn in Big Ten play, and that may cause a couple stumbles here and there, and we'll see if they can regain it to keep themselves firmly in that middle of the pack. And who knows, if they turn a corner, try to find themselves as a top 6 or 7 team in the conference, because right now the way that they've been playing, that feels like it could be their ceiling.
Terrell, what do you make of this, man? Can Indiana make the Big Ten tournament? That's a wild sentence. I can't believe I just said that.
It's crazy, but I don't think it's an overreaction. I do not think it's an overreaction. I think it's possible. I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but I think it's a lot more possible, kind of like Mike just spoke to, than people realize. Like with these extra teams, man, the Big Ten is gonna be tough this year, and it's gonna be a whole lot of parity. There's gonna be a whole lot of those teams just in the middle, kind of beating up on one another. So my suggestion to them was they really need to get off to a good start, and I'm not sure that that's going to happen. But if I feel like they're just kind of in one of those situations right now, they're not playing great. They haven't been impressive even in the wins. That if things kind of start to go left, that it might be a locker room that kind of implodes. We kind of were talking about Kansas State earlier, man. This is like, I feel like this is kind of in line with that a little bit. Like, man, the more passing every loss is, everybody gets a little bit more tight, a little bit more heavy, and obviously they already having some other issues going on with the team as well too. With players on the team. So I think it definitely could happen. I'm not sure that it's gonna happen, but I will say this: if it does happen with the roster they got, that would be a damn shame. That would be a damn shame, man. With all that talent on that roster, every time they went and got a guy this year in a transfer portal, I'm just like, damn, Indiana's gonna be so good next year. They're gonna be loaded, and for us to even be having this conversation is kind of a slap in the face, I feel like. But here we are.
All right, look, I'll be the one to talk some sense into you guys here. Okay, this is a wild overreaction. I feel the 68 freak. Like, Indiana is making the Big Ten tournament. Okay, it is going to happen. They're going to get there if and only if one thing happens. Their 7-foot Malayan center in the middle of Bloomington, Indiana, realizes that throwing a hood up, you ain't fooling anybody, man. Like, you ain't fooling. You're not hiding out. Okay, we know, we can tell. We know who that is. All right,
people know who you are.
Like, we know who you are. Which, like, I laughed so hard. Everyone's seen that. I laughed so hard when I saw that picture. Like, it's so funny. All right. The next overreaction that we are going to get to here is from Brady Thomas, HTC. The ACC is going to get 3 bids to the tournament max. Jerel, I'm going to you first on this one.
I don't think that's overreaction. I don't think it's an overreaction. I think it's quite possible that they might only get 3 teams. I know it's going to be somebody else that's going to be close, maybe 2 more teams that'll be close, but right now, the ACC hasn't. I mean, who do we got? Who we got outside of the normal guys up at the top? They top heavy. Pitt is off to a pretty good start. They'll be a tournament team. You got Duke. North Carolina hasn't been good, but they'll find a way.
Clemson's going to dance. I think that they're. Yep, I think they'll get 4, right? I think Duke, Pitt, Clemson, and North Carolina are going to dance no matter what happens, right? I think Pitt and Clemson are in a good enough spot. Duke is going to be a 1 seed, and Carolina is Carolina, man. Like, there are 10 people in a room that make these decisions. You can't tell me that those 10 human beings in that room aren't going to look at the name North Carolina and say, "Oh, those are the Tar Heels. All right, yeah, we're going to put them in. They're going to be above 500."
No, Rob, they're going to earn it. They're going to earn it with their play. They're going to earn it with their play, Rob. They're going to earn it with their play.
I think so. So you're saying they're getting Duke? Yeah, they might need to, but like, we'll see.
They got to beat Duke once to get in, right?
They will. That's the way that rivalry goes, man. That's the way it goes. They're going to get one.
Man.
They're probably going to go win in Cameron this year. Like, that's what happens in that. They're going to win in Cameron this year.
That might be my
overreaction.
You're right.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Mike, overreaction, reaction, fair, foul. What do you got?
I was going to say, can it be an overreaction if you're saying, hey, it's not 3 max, it's 4 max? Like, that's you're not moving that far. So I'll say it's an overreaction, but I will say that it's 4. Here's the interesting thing is when we talk about the ACC and the bids that they get to the NCAA tournament, I'm not sure there's a conference that's done more with less the last 3 years in terms of, bids resulting in actual runs in the tournament. So 2022, they've had 5 the last 3 years, each year. 2022, 3 Elite Eight teams out of those 5. 2023, 1 Elite Eight team out of those 5. 2024, 3 Elite Eight teams out of those 5. So I'm looking at these teams this year. Outside of Duke, I'm not sure that's going to continue. But I will say that, yes, it's Duke, Clemson, Pitt, and North Carolina. I mean, those are really the 4. All, Duke's the lock of all locks right now, obviously. But Pitt, Clemson, North Carolina, you cannot afford to stumble or have a bad 2 weeks or have a bad, I don't want to say week, but probably, bad 2 weeks in ACC play. Because the last thing that I'll mention is you look at the net, you look at like quad 1 opportunities, and, you're looking at, hey, to get a quad 1 road win, it's got to be against a top 75 net team. Okay. In the SEC, you got 15 of those chances. In the Big Ten, you got 14 of those chances. In the Big 12, you have 12 of those chances. In the ACC, you have 6. So the other 12 teams that you play on the road are quad 2 or worse opportunities. So what does that mean? You always think about it from a win perspective. Oh man, those are from loss perspectives too, if you don't take care of business. So all that's on the table for ACC. And I'll say overreaction, but I will say that it's looking like it's probably going to be 4, which isn't far off from the 5 that it's been the last 3 years.
Yeah, I still think there's an outside chance that SMU can get in there. And don't write off my Louisville Cardinals yet, guys. They still got a chance. They still got a puncher's chance, a fighter's chance.
Shorthanded.
You never know. Shorthanded, yeah. You never know. They got Kadir Shariari back. You never know. All right, Dagan, we got one more left, right? What's the our last overreaction of the night? All right, so we're gonna roll through. We're gonna do the top 2 here. Jerel, I'm gonna give you the first one, and then Mike will give you the second one. Jerel, 4 of the 8 Elite 8 teams this season are going to be from the SEC. Overreaction or not?
I think that's an overreaction. And don't get me wrong, the SEC is good enough. I don't think things will line up like that with the tournament. The tournament is too crazy. Having half of the Elite 8 from one conference is that'd be really wild. I will say they're for sure probably gonna get at least 2, maybe 3, but I don't think 4 is gonna happen. So I think that's an overreaction.
I think they might get 4 to Final 4.
Come on.
No way. No way.
Come on.
Hey, man, look, my hottest take, my biggest overreaction is that Auburn's going to steamroll everybody when we get to March. I think Auburn is like close
That's
to
your hottest
UConn 2024. Like I think
I don't think that's wild.
I think we might be looking at like a 37-3 Auburn that doesn't win by less than double digits in the NCAA tournament this year, which is a real possibility. Mike, the other one was, I believe, the top 3 teams in the Big Ten are Oregon. Yeah, it's a 3-team race in the Big Ten between Oregon, UCLA, and Michigan. Mike, we're on the same page with Oregon. Are the Ducks the favorite? Are the Ducks winning this thing, man?
I'm gonna real quick. I'm going to get to that, but I want to provide evidence to what Jerel was saying on the previous one. I hate to do this, but I have to do it.
Boy.
Okay. So let's go last 3 seasons. NCAA tournament. Who's had the most bids? Okay, in 2022 is the Big 12 and the SEC. They each had 8. Okay, last year, Big 12 and SEC both had 8. That's 16 teams, right? 16 bids. How many Elite 8 appearances? 2 out of those 16. Okay, the year before that, 2023, Big 10 had 8, SEC had 8. That's 16 bids. How many made the Elite 8? 0. How about 2022? Big 10, 9 bids. Most bids. I'm just going through the most bids. How many made the Elite 8?
The problem is you're talking about the Big 10 here.
0.
It's the Big 10.
But I mentioned the SEC and I mentioned the Big 12 too. My point is
the Big 10 is for January, Mike.
The difference is the seeding. And my issue is Duke is going to run through the ACC. Marquette and UConn, I think, are going to run through the Big East. Like, those are teams that are going to steal some of those 1 and 2 seeds potentially. because that's what it's going to come down to for seeding for those guys. Like that's if you're going to get 4 teams to the Elite 8, you're going to need 4 teams probably on the 1 and 2 line to give yourself the best chance. So I'll move on to the Big Ten. I just want to.
Mike's like Jerel, Rob. Here are some facts. I'm backing up Jerel here. No, I'm backing up Jerel here because I went back. I know Big Ten's a horrible example given the March lack of success, but let's talk Big Ten race. Okay. You mentioned UCLA, Oregon, and Michigan. UCLA, here's where I think they are going to be in the race, and here's why I think Michigan is also going to be in that race. UCLA, those teams that are on the West Coast, they double up with teams on the West Coast, which means that UCLA plays Washington and USC twice. No other team in the Midwest or East Coast gets to do that. And same goes for Oregon. So they both have that working with them. Michigan, I think you're going to have an advantage every single night in the front court. So I think those 3 are no doubt in the race. And do not look at the jersey behind me, but I think Illinois is in that race too. Just with the backcourt play, the balance in the backcourt, the talent, the way they're defending, the way they're rebounding, they're in that race as well. And I just think it's really hard for me to watch what Braden Smith did the other night and be like, yeah, that team cannot be in the race to win a Big Ten championship. So that to me, those are really like the 5 teams right now that I put in that race. So to answer the question, yes, it's an overreaction to say it's a 3-team race in the Big Ten. What about Sparty? Where do you stand on Sparty? Quick, 30 seconds. Where do you stand on Sparty?
I mean, I like Michigan State. Honestly, they've surprised me. I was not high on them coming into the season, but the way they defended, the way they've rebounded, that's going to keep them in games. Like they're starting to play with a little bit more pace, using the rebounding to get out in transition like we've seen Michigan State teams do. But look, I don't know if the talent is there. And the shooting, the shooting too. I mean, you're going to have to really, really lean on that defense and rebounding because there's enough of a sample size at this point to know that this is not even an above or slightly average shooting team. They're below average. So that's why I don't necessarily put them in that race, but they've exceeded expectations for sure.
Below average is putting it kindly. I believe they are 329th in America right now when it comes to 3-point shooting. And according to my sources, I don't know if you guys have different sources than me, but my sources are telling me that 329th is not very good. All right, it is that time of the night, ladies and gentlemen. Toasts of the night. Jerel, we're going to go to you first. Who are you toasting on this Overreaction Monday night?
Well, I had an easy one for the night. I got a chance to watch one of my former guys play, and he hit a really good tight game for Princeton. Dalen Davis. He hit a game winner against Akron tonight. Man, they were down 2. Took a tough shot from the left wing. I've seen him do that a few times before in my life. So had a really good game too, and having a good year. Man, Princeton is always fun to watch with him and the other guard Lee. Finished with 18 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. Game winning tonight goes to Dalen Davis.
Cheers to that. The Kings of New Jersey. Make sure you put some respect on their name, okay? The Kings of New Jersey, Princeton Tigers. Mike, who are we toasting?
You talked about New Jersey, so I'll stick with it. Dylan Harper, triple-double tonight. You know, Kylan Boswell got his the other, not even 24 hours before that, and Dylan Harper obviously has to one-up him, which was great, but just showing why he's a potential. I mean, he may make a run at the number 1 pick. Probably going to be pretty solidified in the top 3, and I think he's going to be a big reason Rutgers dances this year and potentially advances in the tournament. So, toast of the night, Dylan Harper, tripped up.
Yeah, toast. Cheers to that. Cheers to Dylan Harper, man. He's so good. I still would take Cooper Flag number 1, but I'm getting really close to having a conversation with myself about whether or not Dylan Harper should be the number 1 overall pick in the draft this year. I normally make 2 toasts of the night, but I'm going with 3 toasts tonight because there were 3 people that have been dragged by Field of 68 properties at different times that had huge nights on Monday night. Number 1, Caleb Love. 33 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, no turnovers. Arizona, a big win to kick off Big 12 play. Coleman Hawkins, his best game as a Kansas State Wildcat. 20 points, 10 boards, 4 steals, 3 assists. Big win over number 16 Cincinnati for Coleman Hawkins. And last but not least, UPS, baby. UPS, what can Brown do for you? They can lose a package that's got $8,000 of camera equipment in it and then happen to 2 months later just leave it on the doorstep of your producer, Dagan Hughes, who happens to find it out there on a random Monday afternoon. It's UPS, I was killing you guys. I was all over you guys on Twitter, and it worked. Bullying on social media works, guys. If there's any brand out there that is not doing what you need them to do, just go after them as hard as you can on every social media platform, and you'll get what you need. UPS, they delivered. It only took 2 months to get it, but we got our cameras back, ladies and gentlemen. So I am a happy man today. So cheers to UPS, to Coleman Hawkins, to Caleb Love, to Dylan Harper, and to Dalen Davis down at Princeton. For Jerel McNeal, for Mike Latula, for our producer, Dagan Hughes, who happened to find that package today. My name is Rob Dauster. We will see you guys on Wednesday night, New Year's Day. No show tomorrow. New Year's Day, 11 o'clock, right here on the Field of 68 After Dark.